This is a replica of the Le Mans winning McLaren F1. There was only ever 5 built. I felt that it was the most beautiful car when it came out in 1995. I always dreamt about having a car, owning this car, and well, it's impossible. So the dream was to build one. An old guy imported a part from England, and I saw that part was for sale on the junk mail. I bought it many years ago. I started building the car, but I didn't have any experience with building cars like this. So I stopped the project for about 15 or 16 years and then picked up again many years later. Started basically with the body first and then went down and went to the drivetrain. Well, that was the initial idea, but I realized that the drivetrain was so complicated that you couldn't just build a body and then put a drivetrain underneath and expect it to work. So it all had to happen simultaneously. Getting the B-pillar in the right height and get everything, and also the left and right side symmetric to each other, was I came to the front and started with the front suspension and make sure that the wheel clearances would be fine because of the wide wheels that I was using, and also the radiators that need to fit in front of this car, because it's got a very, very shallow nose, a narrow nose, and it had to have huge radiators on both sides, and you had to have the lights fit in there. The wheels needed to be able to turn. You've got fans in there. Also, you've got all the piping and plumbing coming from the back of the engine right to the front, water pump, stuff like that up front. And also I decided on this car that I would install air conditioning. Even though the LM cars didn't have aircon in those days, the road-going versions did. But with South African weather, I just thought put aircon, make it a bit more comfortable. I started with a tubular construction on the skeleton for the car, for the chassis. But the strength of this car comes from the aluminium and carbon fiber structure that I built inside the car. So the front of the suspension is basically connected to the monocoque chassis, and the rear with the motor and the gearbox, and the rear suspension is also connected to the back of the monocoque chassis, with some additional strengthening that I put in there. But basically it's the same as the original car was. There was nothing really that I could just buy off the shelf and put in the car. Nothing fit, nothing worked on the car. Best scenario is I would buy something and I had to modify it so that it would work on the car. Okay, the motor that I've got in the car is a BMW V12 of a 850 BMW from the same era. The original car had double overhead cams, and they pushed 650 kilowatts horsepower, but you can't find a double overhead cam V12 BMW motor from that era anymore. They're just not available. So I had to substitute to get extra power so I could come close to that 650 horsepower mark. And we decided to install 2 turbos and 2 intercoolers to try and reach that mark. Originally we had a G50 Porsche gearbox running on the car. It was a 5-speed, super powerful gearbox, but we wanted the 6-speed because that's what the original car had. So I bought a 6-speed gearbox. I had to make the adapter between the gearbox and the engine, and I ended up having to build or fabricate my own flywheel as well, because I didn't find anything that met the requirements that I wanted for the car. The feel, the revving and stuff like that, and also the amount of power that the pressure plate would have to put down for the engine to drive the power to the gearbox. After building this car, we went to a weighbridge so we can get it registered, and it came in at about 1,170 kilograms. It was 40 kilograms heavier than the original car, with a full tank of fuel. So, that was quite an accomplishment. in itself as well. This is my 1933 Type 59 Bugatti. The car came into existence, I bought a chassis. We bought a chassis in the Durban, Natal area. It was just a chassis and a drivetrain and wheels. And apart from that, I had to build everything myself. Stuff that I'm quite proud of is the fact that I made the front axle. Even though it's curved, it is hollow on the inside, as the original Bugatti had. The whole steering mechanism was fabricated from pictures that I got and plans that I got from original Bugatti Type 59s. The bodywork, I did everything myself. I rolled all of the aluminium. I made the louvers. I had to make a louver punch to make the louvers. I used the English wheel that I made to do the rest of the work on the back. So I counted all the rivets on the original cars off of pictures and from the internet. And I made sure that I used the exact same amount of rivets as the original car had on it. The firewall, the gaskets were made out of leather, and I did the same thing on this car as well. I used leather for gaskets, so it would have the same feel and the same patina as the car. When fabricating stuff like the edges on the aluminium, I used copper wires so that it would be exactly the same as the original car. These burrs that I made in here, what we call it, the brushes on the aluminium, the brushed work on the aluminium. Also, I made sure that there was the same amount of brush strokes from left to right as there was on the original car. Stuff like these little wires that connects all the exterior screws and nuts was law then when they were racing, because it would keep the nuts from falling off the car. So I had to drill holes through every single nut and then string the wires so that it would be the same as the original car was. And I'm quite proud of this car. It's a pretty car, it's beautiful, one of my favorites.